All right, good morning, everybody. I see a bunch of people popping in, so we will be getting started here we're going to give it a few more minutes, so we'll probably get started around 2 or 3 after. All right, good morning, everybody. We are just waiting for some more joining here, so we got a pretty good group right now. We're going to give it a couple more minutes for people to trickle in, and then we will get started. So appreciate everybody showing up today. All right, for those just joining us, a little icebreaker in the chat there. I just put a little poll. We're going to have a little fun today. So if you get a chance, check out the poll, throw some answers in there. All right, guys, let's get rocking and rolling. It is now 3 after, and we got some fun to go over today. So I apologize. The sun is like bright right here, but nonetheless, it is beautiful outside. I am up in Northern California right now, and it is currently 56 degrees. So I apologize for all of those in the Valley of the Sun that are baking to death. All right, let's rock and roll. So today's class is going to be on AI and SEO, how to future-proof your digital marketing. So the goal of today is really honestly to demystify a lot of the misconceptions right now on AI and where things are at, and all. I've heard so many fun things. So hopefully you guys find this to be informational. If you guys have any questions, do me a favor, pop them into the chat. Danielle is on this as well. She'll be answering. I'll be answering. So I'll try to go back and forth between the two. So, and if you have any questions, feel free to raise your hand. I'd love to get some engagement. So without further ado, let's go ahead and jump in. So why this matters. Right now, if you didn't know, I mean, we really are in an AI revolution, and you hear so much about it. It is almost constant in this world. And so as it pertains to marketing, it's really transforming the way that we search. So everybody has seen the AI previews, or at least I hope you have on Google. That is powered by Gemini. So, right now, Google is at the forefront of this, along with OpenAI, which is ChatGPT, Perplexity. There's a variety of platforms out there. But think about this. 80% of consumers complete as much as 40% of their searches without ever clicking on a website. So this is 100% how AI is affecting search now. Is no longer are we going to websites per se every single time to find the answer that we're looking for. What you're finding is consumers are they're typing in a query, and they're using that AI response to ultimately answer that question. So the concern is pretty obvious. Is, well, how do I get traffic to my website? How does this impact me? So we'll go through that today, and I'll hopefully give you some insight on how and why we want to be a part of this conversation, and more importantly, what to do with your website to get to that spot where you're getting featured on AI, or through AI, excuse me. All right. So even if you're ranking well, this has been a big challenge in the SEO world or in the marketing world, is that, we've had clients that rank number one consistently. They dominate their industry. And a lot of their traffic is based on queries that consumers are searching. So they're asking questions, they're trying to get answers. They don't necessarily need to do business with that particular person right then and there. So they're at maybe a early stage, if you will, in the buying cycle. But nonetheless, that traffic to the website is starting to dwindle. And when we say dwindle, it's not non-existent. It just means that the data has changed. The way that consumer search has changed. So adopting AI is going to be probably one of the single most important things to do if you haven't started doing it yet as a business owner. But more importantly, for marketing agencies, we've been doing this now for years. And in fact, our strategy is really AI centric. We really didn't need to do a whole lot of modification to our strategy in No Boundaries. Because again, everything that we do, we are content marketers as a trade or as a marketing agency. So content marketing would be the most appropriate description of who we are and what we do. And that 100% is at the forefront of the AI revolution. So if you don't adapt, really, where are we going to be? You're going to risk losing visibility to competitors who are already optimizing for AI-driven search. So the good news is this is an easy fix, and this is an easy opportunity. It's nothing to be scared of. It's nothing to shy away from or just throw in the towel. It's actually fairly easy to do. And as it evolves, again, it's going to be kind of a fun little journey for business owners to go on or marketers to go on. So takeaways from this, again, just 80% of consumers completed as much as 40% of their search. I mean, that's really the number we need to look at. So let's get this big picture. In 2025, over half of website traffic, 53%, is still coming from organic search. That's still a huge number. Over half of search is still organic. So even with AI jumping into the mix and kind of skewing some of the data, it's still the dominant force. Organic search is still the elephant in the room. The number one result on Google still earns nearly 28% of all clicks. And 63% of that traffic is coming from mobile devices. So there's a lot to unpack there, and we will in just a second here. But with that, here's where things get a little bit tricky. So AI tools like Google's AI Overview, you have Bing Chat, ChatGPT, you have a lot of options now, right, to find information out. I'll tell you, funny side story is I just had a cracked tooth the other day. And so I was in desperate need of a dentist. And I happened to be on ChatGPT. And I actually just for, lack of anything else to do, I actually looked for a dentist on ChatGPT. And the ironic thing is I actually found it a lot easier to use than Google. And I was talking to my wife about it, and she's like, yeah, I don't know about that. She's like, what do you mean? And I said, well, I wasn't overburdened with ads. I was given direct information. It was very easy to digest, clear, concise. I told ChatGPT, give me the top 25 rated dentists in this area and include their website and their phone number. And boom, lo and behold, there it is. Didn't have to do a lot of digging, didn't have to do a lot of searching. It was right there for me. It was a summary of all the reviews from a variety of platforms. Again, I really don't have anything negative to say. It was actually very easy to use. So if you think about that example, you can very clearly see how the search landscape is going to change there. Now, again, unpacking the data that we went over right here with 53% of search still comes from organic traffic, understand that that's down. So, we used to sit comfortably in the mid 60s. And so does that mean that, again, SEO isn't relevant anymore? Websites aren't relevant anymore? Absolutely not. It's still obviously the source of where AI is getting its data from. But what we do is we need to adapt to this. We need to make sure that we're visible across these different platforms. So it's no longer about optimizing for Google. You hear that a lot in our industry is that, oh, I'm doing SEO for Google. Well, you're not really doing SEO for Google anymore. You're doing SEO for search. And believe it or not, Bing is still a very relevant traffic source. ChatGPT is a relevant traffic source now. There's a variety of these AI platforms that are here. Grok even, so there's a variety of these platforms that are here, and quite frankly, it's just about diversifying what you're doing. So big picture, SEO is still relevant. Traditional SEO is just adapting to the environment, and so you're going to hear a couple new terms that we're going to discuss here in a little bit that tell you how that pivot's taking place. So 53% of websites, you can see here, 27% clicks are the top results, and 63% of web traffic is mobile first. So again, just quick overview on that one. So this is Larry Page. I don't know if anybody knows who he is, but he's a pretty big player in the game, obviously, with Google. So artificial intelligence would be the ultimate version of Google, the ultimate search engine that would understand everything on the web. It would understand exactly what you wanted. It would give you the right thing. And we're nowhere near doing that now. So however we can get incrementally closer to that, and on is basically what we're working on. So you can really see the insights into Google, into what they're working on and how this is going to evolve, is that this is the quest for perfection into what's driving consumers. So ultimately, and that's Google, that's the whole premise behind algorithms and why all of this has to be a challenge today, is that when you look at that big picture, why does Google do algorithm changes? What they're trying to refine and perfect search. They're trying to make sure that they can understand what that consumer sentiment is. What is it that they're looking for? How are they searching? What are they going for? That's why they change. They're on the constant pivot here. Well, what is that? That's AI now. That's AI is making a lot of those decisions and driving a lot of this change. So it's pretty cool. All right, how AI works in search. So here's what happens behind the scenes. So when someone searches online, the AI system analyzes, and we're talking obviously in like milliseconds here. Way faster than any of us can fathom. So essentially, these AI systems are pulling from hundreds and thousands of different sources. What are those sources? Websites. So, and then it's directing the consumer to the concise answer. Now, how is it interpreting what that consumer is looking for? Well, obviously, a complex algorithm behind the scenes is interpreting what that search and what the searcher intent truly is. And then the credible sources, essentially, it's evaluating the content real time to determine, hey, this is the most likely answer. So if it's getting, and again, this is just an example, but if 100 things are saying, the sky is blue and 10 are saying the sky is green, well, AI is the byproduct of data. So when you look at it, where's it going to pull from? It's going to pull the most relevant sources, but more importantly, it's going to pull things that it can find consistently. So there's a lot of information there that we need to consider on our websites and how we're going to optimize these moving forward. So the searcher might see this answer without ever visiting a single website. So when you ask or you present a query online, that's what you're doing when you're searching. Again, AI overviews now. What is it doing? It's pulling it directly into search. So you may not actually click on a website to find your answer. You may just read what it says. Voice is becoming even more important. Apple and a lot of different sources are jumping on that bandwagon, where you're going to find that, now a lot of these different answers are going to be just presented to you. So without ever even really truly looking at them. So there's a lot of cool things that are coming down the pipe with AI. So how does AI content get organized? So we're going to talk about it on a website here in just a minute, but it favors structured, authoritative, and easy to parse content. And so you're finding a lot of people right now, they're almost overdoing it with AI because, again, it's unfamiliar to a lot of people. It's really something that people are just, we're all trying, right? We're all kind of throwing a dart at a board and hoping it sticks with AI. But the truth is, there's a lot that we can pull from the answers that are being presented. Typically, and I'll give you some more statistics here in just a minute, but typically answers between 70 and 150 words is preferred right now. So that's the content that it's looking for. Now, does that mean could change down the road? Of course it could. So, but it's looking for, and what AI is doing is it's trying to paraphrase large batches of content into easy to digest, essentially answers for consumers. So really think about that, is that when you're thinking about where to get questions or what questions are being asked, and again, some of this is really common sense, but when you're thinking about it from that perspective, is how do we ultimately, can't guarantee that you're going to get into the AI overview, but how do you essentially give it your best shot? Try to make that easy to parse content. Try to make it bite-sized and easy to digest. So that's where one of our new phrases is coming in. Answer engine optimization is coming into play. So AEO, so again, different from SEO. AEO means the structuring of your information so AI sees it as the best, most trustworthy answer to deliver. So it's a huge shift from what traditional SEO is all about, keyword geo-stuffing, a lot of those things. Now we're looking at AEO, and now we're looking at how to structure that data to make it more relevant for search engines or answer engines. So AI doesn't replace SEO. It changes how the results are shown. AI pulls from authoritative structured content, and AEO means writing for humans and machines alike. This is one, and I put this bullet point in there very, very specifically because a lot of clients, they'll ask, hey, I really don't understand why you wrote this. This doesn't make sense. This isn't how we would converse or how we would, talk to consumers. And we get it. Like we completely understand that sometimes when we're writing content, blogs, or structured content on websites, it doesn't exactly read how consumers would ultimately absorb that content. It's certainly not conversational, and that's by intent. So a lot of what you're going to see now, especially on websites where, and I'll give you a great example, is that, drain cleaning in Peoria, Arizona is, blah, 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 blah. You'll see like websites written with geo stuffing or geo tags in there and things like that. Obviously, you would never have a conversation like that. You would never throw geography into, small talk. But these are the things that obviously you do to manipulate search. Same concept that you're going to see with AEO now is that you're going to start to see very structured data being inserted or very structured answers being inserted with direct questions. The most obvious of these being FAQ sections on websites. That's one that we've been doing for years, and really now it's kind of yielding its beautiful reward for us. Before it was literal, we were writing FAQs because we were trying to proactively answer questions for consumers. Now it's taken on a whole new beast. Now it's even more relevant because now that's where AI or AEO is essentially pulling its content from. So as we go on, myth versus fact, a couple of things that I want to go over. There's so much misinformation out there. It's crazy. But AI will kill SEO entirely. Obviously, not going to happen. So this isn't a webinar on self-preservation right now. This is just demystifying. A lot of people you got a lot of marketers transitioning their business models into these coined terms or flavors of the day, if you will. And the truth is, a skilled, talented marketer has already been doing this. So SEO isn't dying, it's just evolving. AI picks answers randomly. It actually doesn't. It actually uses credible, structured content. So this isn't like, throwing a dart at a board. It is very methodical in how it picks its answers. Only big brands win. That is completely false. Small businesses, in fact, more than ever have the ability to compete against big box stores or big brands, because now it's leveled the playing field. Now you have the same ability to produce content that the guy down the road does. So this is a really cool time for us as small business owners. Now, AI adoption and trends. So AI isn't something that is just for tech companies. This is mainstream now. So 67% of small businesses are already using it in some degree, and they may or may not have even known it. So that's kind of cool. Again, the adoption, whether you wanted to or meant to or not, in some fashion or some way, is already being done. And that's due to the attributes that are already present on websites. So, within settings or within WordPress, Shopify, a lot of these settings are already present. These are already relevant, and we're already using them. So this is cool. So whether content writing, customer service, search optimization, this is going to become an even more important part of the mix. You're starting to see, especially with one of the earlier versions of AI was what? Chatbots. Chatbots have been around for years now. Now, some of them crude, some of them more sophisticated, but chatbots essentially are interpreting a question and presenting an answer. Earlier versions of that were very direct. You present the question and you provide the answer. Now they're starting to more freely adapt, and you're starting to see them pull from multiple sources. So that's kind of cool. So the evolution of chatbots is definitely refining itself right now. Even customer service. I'll give you an example. Fun one, not so fun actually. ADP. I was doing payroll the other day, and I was having an issue with their platform. And instead of calling and talking to a person, I actually did it all through their automated service. Now, some people might say, well, that's really crappy. That's not very personalized. I wouldn't disagree. Right now, I would have probably, as a consumer or as a business owner, I would have valued a more personalized experience. But humans are the most expensive part of running a business. So for those of us who are business owners, you guys know all too well, hey, human capital is very expensive. So from a customer service perspective, I have to ask myself as a purchaser of their services, do I want to sit there and potentially wait on hold for that human to come to the line, or do I want to try to use this little chat AI tool that they have? So I said, hell, it's 3:00 in the morning. Let's do this. So long story short, I went through it. It wasn't the easiest to use system in the world, but I'll tell you what, I got my answer and I got a solution. So I can't say it wasn't for nothing, and I can't say it was horrible, but it was actually insightful to see where this is going as a business and the options that are going to be available to us in this future. So again, that outweighing the personalization versus automation, there's a lot of questions in there. We're on the early adoption phase of that technology, so you're going to see a lot of negative sentiment towards that for the time being. But I'll tell you, if people will keep an open mind, and certainly hold times are a big deal right now. Trying to find skilled labor, your skilled talent, that's going to be a challenge with any business. So sometimes AI might be the solution for that. So nonprofits, those are the ones that, they're the ones that are probably going to use it first, because again, you got to balance finances. So in the world overall, 86% of professionals have implemented AI tools into their campaigns. AI is an amazing resource for analyzing data. What used to take us sometimes days and weeks to get answers, we're getting in seconds now. I can give you a real and honest answer is when you look at Google Analytics. I would venture to say 90 to 95% of my clients probably really don't understand how to look at their analytic reports. And, I get it. You guys are running businesses. That makes sense. But here's an option. Run that report through AI and let it tell you. And here's a great, I was just going through a webinar the other day on this, and it was pretty awesome. This company actually teaches their clients to throw the Google Analytic reports into ChatGPT and say, give me the top 5 opportunities that you see with this report. Boom. And it was actually really insightful. It gave clients a tangible solution, or I guess question at that point, to what they were looking at. It gave them the opportunity to engage in a conversation with their marketing agency that they didn't maybe previously feel comfortable doing. So it was actually a really cool thing. Now, again, understanding what reports they're looking at, there's a lot to unpack with that one, but it was really cool to see that actually in action. So believe it or not, this can really help us as business owners simplify what we're looking at. So if you don't feel comfortable with Google Analytics, Google Search Console, any of the data that you're looking at, this is a great opportunity for you to use AI to really get some insight and maybe to simplify it for you to a point where, hey, I can now absorb or utilize this or put some action plans in place, if that makes sense. I'll tell you first and foremost, Google Analytics above all else, it's very complicated. It's not what started out to be very simple and very easy to use. They have made it ridiculous, quite frankly. I mean, to the point where even the marketing guy has to go and get training on this stuff to understand some of the new data points that they present. So, with that said, it doesn't leave a lot of hope for the average, business owner because, add that into the whole mix of the 3,000 other hats that you wear. That can be a challenge. So, AI adoption is definitely up and coming, and there's practical uses for it real time right now as business owners. So, we'll go past some more statistic. Let's get into the coined terms because these are the ones that I really want to cover today. And just so we can demystify them, this is not something to be afraid of. This is not something to run away from. These are things that you will start to see if you haven't already. You will absolutely start to see these things in mainstream ads and, and sadly, a lot of this is going to be meant to confuse you as business owners. It's meant to, dig into the pockets, get into that bank account, and get some more money. But we're going to simplify it today to hopefully make it a little bit easier for you to navigate. So we are moving on. Just from just keywords and backlinks. That is your traditional SEO model. We've heard it for years is, oh, well, I'm just going to build more links. I'm going to build more credibility. I'm just going to add more keywords. And it's a way to kind of push that conversation down the road. But the truth is, now that conversation is going to change, and it's going to change very quick here. So AEO, we already know, answer engine optimization. We've already talked about what that is. So now we're going to talk about what GEO and AIO is. So AEO, again, focuses on structured content. So it provides, or the goal is to provide the perfect answer for AI-driven search results. We're starting to get more and more data out there now on common queries that are AI driven, meaning we're getting consumers answering, or consumers are absorbing their answer no longer from websites. We call them zero click attributes. So we're looking at those now as marketers to say, okay, we know we need to structure this data for these particular queries in such a way because we want to get in front of AI, because it's very unlikely a consumer is going to click on a website for those results. So now we've pivoted our marketing or our SEO work from traditional SEO to more of an AEO. So now you have GEO. So this is about creating content that generative AI models like ChatGPT will choose to cite. So how do you do that? Well, what is ChatGPT and a lot of these sources looking for? Credible content. Well, how do you demonstrate credible content? Or how does you as a business owner generate credible content? Well, it's actually not difficult to do. This is where a lot of us as business owners, we quite frankly, we take our knowledge and skill sets for granted. The experience that we bring to the table, is not to be dismissed. And that is where personalizing your content is 100% going to come into play. Citing things like facts, figures, statistics, having case studies on websites. Those are things that these AI tools are looking at to determine, hey, is this in fact credible? So citing sources, having a solid backlink portfolio. Like a lot of these things are going to play hand in hand now. So where a lot of people are saying, well, SEO is dead. Well, it's not dead. Actually, believe it or not, GEO pulls a lot on SEO and a lot of the credibility that was generated from the backlinks that were built as a part of the SEO campaign. So now GEO is pulling on that, and it's looking at the content on the website more closely. So the only real pivot here is going to be to optimize sites for GEO. You're really going to want to insert your expertise, insert your experience. If you're using sources like ChatGPT, Perplexity, and some of these other different sources to write content, that's not a bad thing. We're going to talk about that in a minute. But editing it, adding your opinion, adding your experience into the mix. Believe it or not, these AI sources can interpret that, and it adds more credibility to what they're looking at. So AIO, let's talk about that now. So AIO is making sure that your content is technically ready for AI systems to read and understand. So these are things like schema markups and a lot of the technical attributes that are associated with the site. We have to make sure now it's no longer just about, okay, I published a blog, great. So now, is that blog formatted properly? Is the structure on the backside optimized according to AIO standards? So there's a lot, and again, I don't want to get overly technical with this, but these three things together are making up what we refer to as our search landscape now. So lots to unpack there. But essentially, you're future-proofing your online presence. For the businesses that really, truly start to learn this stuff and really start to adopt these different strategies, you are the ones that will be essentially recession-proof. You are the ones that will not have such volatility in rankings or visibility or traffic to the website. Early adopters always win in the long run. So, a hybrid optimization strategy. That's essentially what we're going to start talking about. And that's going to be the conversation piece that you should be having with your marketing agency. The winning strategy isn't about abandoning traditional SEO. It's about layering. We have to make sure that AIO, GIO, AIO, all of these things are playing a factor now into the overall equation. So what I want to make sure that business owners understand is we don't want to be siloed into traditional thinking that SEO is it. Regardless what the marketing agency calls it, right? It's your responsibility to understand what they're doing to essentially tackle these items or to address these items. So if like for my agency as an example, am I going to pivot to these coin terms? Probably not, because I think it's ridiculous. And quite frankly, it's just another element to confuse people. And so there's no need for that. To me, our SEO strategy will remain centric to SEO and again, adopting these new requirements that the industry is putting forth. But we're not going to change our name. We're not going to come up with some coined product just to sell people stuff. So for us, traditional SEO is going to remain constant for us. But again, just don't let people pull the wool over your eyes. There's going to be a lot of products and a lot of things that are going to be created in the near future that are going to try to essentially confuse. They're going to try to make, create a position for themselves. And it, quite frankly, is unnecessary. We already have all the tools in the tool shed to be successful as business owners. It's just about applying it and making sure that you understand how these technologies are being implemented as a part of your strategy. So we're going to keep optimizing for keywords, backlinks, site performance. Those are all going to be your standard 9-to-5 stuff. Nothing is going to change there. But then we're going to build on AEO by adding more and more FAQs for clients for my clients that are on this webinar today. We've been doing FAQs for years. Every single month we present new FAQs to clients. So again, those things aren't going to change. We've already been doing that for years. But you're going to start to see a lot of marketing agencies start to adopt that. And if you're not with us and you're with another company, that is something you absolutely should be holding them accountable to, is what are you doing to present new ideas, new options to me every month? And FAQs are a big part of that. Schema markup, that's a simple one. So again, most websites and most SEO people, we've been doing this stuff for years. So that doesn't change, but making sure that it is properly optimized is going to become more and more important. And then secondly, or lastly, is going to be conversational language. So we do want to have a more natural approach to our content. We don't want to come across as we're manipulating search, right? Because I think the answer to the equation right now, and Google has publicly come out and said multiple times, listen, we don't mind SEO or ChatGPT or AI content. They've come out and said that. So for all those naysayers that say, oh, well, if you use AI, you're getting penalized. You're not getting penalized. That's completely false. You would get a manual penalty that would be visible within Google Search Console should that actually be true. And I've yet to come across that. So that's a lie. That's a myth. But with that said, if you are using AI to manipulate search, and that's kind of a gray area, because the question is always, well, isn't SEO designed to manipulate search? Yeah, in a sense. But what we're talking about is, those really unscrupulous people that are quite frankly using black hat tactics. That's really where we're getting at. When we say manipulating search, it's black hat SEO tactics that generate some pretty quick results. I'm not going to lie. There's a lot of things you can do that are under the table that, you can move the needle pretty quick, but it always catches up with you every single time. And it is not worth getting blacklisted by Google to have a short-term win. It's just not. So those are things, a conversational language is more of a natural language. And that means that when you use sources like ChatGPT or any of these content builders, you want to make sure that you review your content, and you want to make sure that you're adding more insightful information, more of your opinion. And when I say opinion, more of that experience that you bring to the table. So again, don't dismiss your experience. And finally, fine tune your AIO. with clean formatting, logical structure. And again, this is really more for webmasters out there, just making sure that when you're generating a blog, you have your breadcrumbs on there, make sure that it's easy to navigate, make sure the structure is logical. What you don't want, and again, from a coding perspective, we just don't want a gobbledygook mess of nonsense that is designed to manipulate. There's a lot of coders out there think that they got the secret sauce to manipulate Google, and the truth is you don't. I mean, nobody does. And if somebody did, Google is going to find out about it. And guess what? That's where algorithm changes come in. So it's only a matter of time. But we want to build strong trust signals with experience, expertise, authority, and trustworthiness. That's essentially what we're getting at the end of the day. So moving on, Google Analytics, spotting AI's impact. So, again, we've went over the basics of AI and kind of some of the tools and how we're seeing these things being implemented. You hopefully have learned a couple of coined terms now. So how is this all going to play in? So Google Analytics, spotting AI's impact. One of the best ways to know whether AI is affecting your business is simply look at your data. If your rankings are holding steady, but your website traffic's dipping, AI overviews is probably the answer to it. And it's not a problem. So a lot of people are saying, well, how do I fix this? How do I get my traffic back up? I think you're missing the mark. If that's your question, you're definitely missing the whole concept that we're bringing to the table here. What you really should be asking yourself is, how do you leverage AI overviews to generate more leads? That's it. I mean, that's at the end of the day what we are essentially what we should be trying to do. So if fewer people are clicking on your top pages, it's a sign that AI might be intercepting your data or your traffic. And that's not a problem, guys. I mean, quite frankly, it's the pinnacle of search. When AI views you as the most trustworthy source, like rockstar, right? Like that is where you want to be. The next question is, how do we leverage that to build more lead volume or more lead traffic? That's going to be a question that we need to answer. So another thing to look for is an increase in branded searches. So people are typing in your business name specifically. What we have noticed from AI traffic or from analytics and AI overviews is that what you're starting to see, because remember, when AI cites you, so we'll use Gemini as the example in Google, when Google cites you in that AI result, what you're noticing is, or what we're noticing is, the byproduct of that now is branded search. So direct traffic. So if you're ever looking at your analytic profile, you're going to notice what used to be organic is now going to look at AI overviews, because now you can measure that. That is a new tab within Google Analytics. So you can see AI overviews. But now, more importantly, what we're seeing is the direct traffic, which is your branded traffic, start to increase. And why is that? Well, because they looked at the AI overview, that consumer read whatever it is that they were, reading, and now they saw your business name. So they may not be at a point in their funnel to where they're buying from you right now, but now down the road, maybe a week, 2 weeks, 2 days, whatever it is, now you're starting to see that traffic come back because they remembered, oh, you know what? No Boundaries Marketing Group. I read something about that the other day, and they come back to you later. So there's definitely some attributes that you are just with their pivoting, if you will. Where we used to say direct traffic is really your repeat and referral traffic. That's, an easy way to assert that data. Well, now it's not just that. Now branded search is becoming a byproduct of essentially AI overviews. So that's a pretty cool thing. So look for traffic drops with stable rankings. So if you're looking at your ranking reports each week or month or however often you're doing that, and you see fair growth or at least stable rankings within your keywords, well, and the drop in traffic, that's probably the byproduct. It's probably AI. Watch for click-through rate changes on your top pages. So again, one thing that you can't say is AI driven is if our click-through rate is going down, there's probably something else to that. So don't let the data don't just jump to the assumption that it's AI overview. You really do need to look at that big picture and see what's going on. Compare pre and post AI overview rollout data. So if you've gone through and you've re-optimized your site, you've done something, again, compare and contrast. Within analytics itself, you can look at 30, 60, 90-day reports. You can pull specific reports that, hey, let's look at the previous month versus current, stuff like that, and see how those changes are affecting. So you might even call it A/B testing, however you want to refer to it. The most important thing is just to make sure that you're looking at your data and understanding. Right now, because AI is in its infancy, you're going to see a lot of things that change over time. So things that are working today may not work tomorrow. And so we have to be able to understand our data now more than ever. Search Console, again, we're using the elephant in the room, right? AI, Google is our number one most optimized platform, if you will, or we're optimizing for that for search. So Search Console gives you another window into how AI is impacting your visibility. So if your impressions are going up, and we have seen this across the board, several case studies that we've done as of recent, you're starting to see clients' traffic or impressions, meaning their visibility, go through the roof. But then for some reason, we're not getting clicks, we're not getting traffic to the website. Well, the answer to that is we actually are. We're not getting traffic to the website, but our content is still being absorbed. And how is it being absorbed? It's being absorbed through AI overviews. So that's a really important thing. Or even Chat GPT. We're being cited in other places. And so consumers are still getting exposure to our brand. It's just not reflecting in your traditional reports like Google Search Console and Analytics. So just be mindful of that. This doesn't have to be a negative for you. You may also notice more conversational queries like, how do I? Historically, those have been like your YouTube videos. Like a lot of people used to go to YouTube and watch videos on this stuff. Well, now what's happening to YouTube? They're in a fight for their life right now. Why? Because now people are going to AI to ask those same questions. Now, YouTube is still in a dominant position, still the second largest search engine. It's not going anywhere. But the difference between, we'll say, old school YouTube and current is YouTube will be adapting to this whole AI revolution as well. How and why? Well, because again, Search GPT and Chat GPT and Perplexity and a lot of these different companies out there, you're starting to see the consumer model shift into more of the step-by-step model. Because now you can go to ChatGPT and I can say, how do I do this, 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 and this? And it will literally give you a step-by-step answer. Funny one, Danielle, who's my operations manager or director of operations, she's on this call today or on this webinar. I swear to you, she pretty much researches everything on ChatGPT now. So any question that I ask her that she doesn't know how to do, and God bless her, she is an amazing person to utilize tools and resources before coming back to me. She will go to these platforms and she will ask the question, find the answer, and God love her, she gets it done. So, again, it's been a huge opportunity just within companies for efficiency purposes as well. Old school used to go to YouTube and watch these videos and hope that somebody had done one on it and so on and so forth. So again, numbers are just changing. So again, Google Search Console, impressions are up, but clicks are flat. That's usually some AI cannibalization, and that's not a bad thing. I don't want that to come across as negative. More question-based conversational queries. Those are awesome. And then growth in long-term keywords or long-tail keywords. If you've ever seen most SEO strategies, I'll give you a little insight into this. Most SEO strategies are umbrellas. We refer to them as umbrellas. So you'll have broad level terms like search engine optimization company, right? That's kind of a pretty broad one, right? Underneath that, there's thousands and thousands of other keywords that exist. So by optimizing for the umbrella, you're affecting change under a lot of other keywords. That's the old school mentality. New school is growth in longer tail conversational keywords. Again, search traffic isn't going to be as high for those, but the conversion rates will be much better. So now those will be our lead sources moving forward. So again, it's not going to change how SEO is done. SEO is still done to broad level, and then affects more underneath. You're just going to start to see more of the FAQs and that type of conversational queries drawing from those sources. So it's going to be pretty cool. Lots of good stuff coming. So practical tips for business. Use structured Q&A and schema markups. If you don't know what that means, structured Q&A just means questions and answers, FAQs, and then schema markup. If you don't know what to do with that, I would encourage, and there's an entire webinar series on just how to do schema, things like that, or talk to your marketing agency. Publishing long-form authoritative guides. These are things like how-to guides. These are things, again, educational in nature. I'll give you an example on this one. We market for a lot of chiropractors, doctors, things like that. Historically, you would never, ever, ever publish something on like home tips on how to relieve sciatic pain. I'll just throw that one out there. I just made that up. But anyway, like home remedies or home tips for people to do, for them to treat themselves at home, right? You would never historically do that. Why? Well, because that's going to take away business from the practice in theory. Well, now, in order to get in front of AIO and GEO, that's really kind of what you need to do. You need to provide more educational information to consumers. Now, again, we know that, like, is the average person going to be able to resolve their sciatic pain by simply doing some stretches? Probably not. There's probably an underlying thing, and chances are it's probably going to need a chiropractor to help with that. So is it detracting business? Maybe on the immediate, you might see a little bit of drop in the, or maybe a longer tail funnel for that consumer buying pattern, but it's not going to take away, and it has not impacted any of the clients so far. I mean, that we haven't seen any type of negative impacts whatsoever. So being more educational in nature, long form content, how-to guides, case studies, those are all things that are going to be more and more important as we go through this AI revolution. And then using AI tools, SEMrush. We use SEMrush as an agency. There's a ton of them out there. Uh, Again, don't get caught up. Here's what I really stressed you. You know, SEMrush, for example, it's a phenomenal tool. I love it. We use it every single day. But is it the say all be all? No, it is still at the end of the day somebody's interpretation of Google's algorithm. It is somebody's interpretation of data. So every source is going to have a different thing. Like I use a triple redundancy in my agency. So we use typically 2 to 3 different sources to come up with a conclusion to a question, right? So if I look at an analytic model and I see, traffic's doing this, doing that, I might look at SEMrush for a solution. I might look at Moz. I might look at Ahrefs. I might look at, something else. So there's a variety of tools out there in this industry, but I'm going to look at 3 different sources, or at least 2 to 3 different sources, to determine, all right, well, what is the likely solution to the problem? Because I tell you what, SEMrush, it's not always right, especially when it comes to backlinks and SEO stuff. They SEMrush, as an example, everything's toxic to SEMrush. So, if you were to do that, you would never build a backlink in your life because you would be disavowing them forever. So some of these tools, just take everything you read with a grain of salt. Just make sure that you evaluate multiple sources before making a decision or coming to a conclusion on something. Because again, technology is not always perfect yet, especially with the AI. It's still brand new. You'll see constantly, especially if you produce content and things like ChatGPT, sometimes it gets it wrong. Hence, they have a disclaimer on there. So you got to be careful. You got to read through you got to know what you're looking at, but you got to, more importantly, read through this stuff to make sure that you have a firm understanding. Content strategy and formats. So the goal is going to be position yourself as an authority. So your content needs depth. We joke about this back in the day. It used to be 250 words or more, right? That we used to say to clients, listen, hey, I need you to write a blog. It needs to be 250 words or more, blah, 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 and give them a little, guide, and then they're off to the races. I don't think a 250 word blog would make any impact, quite frankly, at all. So 250 words is just not sufficient anymore. Now you're looking at 1,000, 1,500, depending on we'll say the topic, and more importantly, the competition and the geographies that you're trying to rank in. Those are absolute factors that will play a huge role moving forward. But I would say at a bare minimum, really 1,000 words or greater now is really where you need to focus. If you're really good at writing and you're really, direct, and you're not covering multiple like content, like we'll say categories, if you're very direct in your blog writing, you might be able to get away with 750. But again, anything under that, and you're really shooting yourself in the foot. So really make sure you focus on your long form content. Research back pieces. Do not be afraid to cite authoritative sources to build credibility with your own information. Meaning, if you have a school of thought, you've been doing something for 20 years and you've done it this way and blah, 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 and you find you're writing a blog on this, make sure not only do you cite your experience, so not only do you reference your experience in that blog, but also look for existing authoritative links to inject into that. Why? Because it's only essentially backing you up. So think about that. Research back pieces, and use common sense, news sources, sites that Google already finds credible. Those are things that we want to reference. We don't want to reference, the other small business right down the road. Chances are they're probably not going to be that authoritative in Google's eyes. So make sure that it's relative. New York Times, Wall Street Journal, Washington Post, regardless of what your views are on those publications. Again, news sources are always really, really good. WebMD, there's a lot of them out there. So depending on your industry and what you're doing, make sure you have research back pieces or reference points or links to that to back your statements up. It's not all about long articles, timely conversational updates that align with how people ask questions. There's a really, really, really good tool, and I'm going to share it with you right now. I use this all the time. For those who have done business with me before, you guys know that I use this, well, quite frankly, all the time. I'm going to pull it up here, and it is called SpyFu. So the thing that we use about SpyFu is really, really simple. So I'm here, I logged in, I put in my own website. So I'm going to go to SEO research here. And what I'm looking for specifically is competitors, but more importantly, what I want to do is I want to look at combat. Combat is where, and again, I didn't structure this, so don't, let me go back to that. There we go. So I could put relative competitors in there. I'm just going off of what it defaulted to. But a couple of really cool things that I want to highlight to you is this. When you look at this little block right here, so within my ecosystem right now, just without doing any edits, without manipulating this in any way, shape, or form, there's roughly 4,000 questions that it came up with that people are asking that are relative. Now, not all these are going to be great. Like, do I give a damn about Amazon fresh work? No, I don't. So, these things, again, you're going to have to kind of go through these and really refine this list. But are there some nuggets in here? 100%. If I wanted to somehow rank for Amazon FBA, I don't know what that is, but whatever. Scarecropping, I have no idea what that is. Google Plus is a non-issue anymore, or not even a thing anymore. Winning bidding strategy. All right, I might play on this one, So you're gonna need to go through this data and look, but these are real-time questions that are being asked on Google. So utilize this. Come in here, put keywords in, look at relative competitors. There's a variety of ways to do combat, but you can go topic-based, you can go any way you want, but use your data. Another one, and I like, if anybody has ever seen Neil Patel, he's another really great SEO guy. He's been in this business for a long time. You can look and answer the public. Okay, he bought this particular website years ago, and you can put a topic in here, and it'll give you all sorts of data on how people are searching for those particular items. So a couple of cool little websites that you guys can use to really get ahead of the curve on content and really see, how do I, like, if you're struggling to ask yourself, what should I write a blog on today? Those are great websites for you to go to find out, well, what are people asking? Another good one, go to ChatGPT. Hey, ChatGPT, what are the top 50 questions that people are asking, or small businesses are asking about search engine optimization right now? Boom. There you go. It'll spit out 50. I don't know, maybe 20, 30 of them are maybe worth anything. So, just go through that and start going. So it's really easy to do. So content is going to be king, and it always has been. AI content, or AI favors content that's thorough, accurate, and useful. So again, educational in nature. Things that are sales pitches, that's going to be booted to the wayside. That is not going to happen anymore. So if you think that, you're just going to sales pitch everybody and, oh, sign up for an appointment, schedule an appointment, every other call to action is you, me stuff, you're never going to rank. That's got to go bye-bye. So now you need to focus on the education. That's why I stress statistics, tips, tricks, trends, best practices, myth versus fact. There's a variety of ways you can do it, but that is going to be the way that we move the needle in the future. Don't overlook local SEO. Again, own your home first, concept that we teach to a lot of businesses. Think about the area around you and then start branching out holistically. Google is not stupid. They know that if you're in downtown Phoenix, Google's not dumb. I mean, Google Maps alone knows that it's a 2-hour commute if I want to get to Apache Junction during rush hour. So again, the practicality of you ranking and jumping geographies is not really realistic. So own your home first. If you're in Phoenix, own Phoenix, then move to Glendale, then Peoria, then so on and so forth, or whatever major metro you're in. You can do county level, zip code level. There's a variety of ways to do local SEO, but don't dismiss local SEO. Google Business Profiles, absolutely more relevant now than ever. So don't dismiss that stuff. Searches containing near me. Again, they've surged over 900%. So again, it can't be ignored. AI assistants, they're increasingly using location-based data. So again, Google does, believe it or not, prioritize local search over national. So when we think about, well, how do I compete against, if I'm an electronics store, how do I compete against Best Buy? It's actually not hard to do. You actually stand a better chance than Best Buy does, because Google would much rather rank a local business than a national big box retailer. So again, those are just small little things that you can do to gain the advantage. But again, content is king. Timely updates. I also want to just touch on a couple of things. Consistency with your timing. So please do not write one blog a week for 2 months and then stop writing blogs because it didn't work. That is just quick recipe for disaster. It's not going to work. You need to be consistent. If you're a one blog a week kind of business, be a one blog a week kind of business. If you can write 2, 3, whatever it is you can be consistent at, do that. Do not just think this is going to be a one-hit wonder. Do not think that you're going to produce 10, 20 blogs and then all of a sudden dominate search. It's not going to happen. This is something you're going to have to work at. You can also use current events. So if you see something in the news, I have tickers on a variety of things in the marketing business. So when I see different things that I want to maybe jump on, piggyback on, those are great opportunities to provide timely updates or blogs or content. Just be a part of the conversation. So again, those things are not going away. Those have always been the status quo. Just a reminder. So cover all bases. Traditional and AI is not going anywhere. So we're not going to do that. Let's move on to Q&A because we are coming up on the end of this. So Q&A, I'm going to open it up here real quick. I appreciate all those that participated in the poll. If you guys have anything in chat, let's throw it in there real quick. I am here. I'm going to open it up. So if you guys want to chat or talk, you're more than welcome to open up there. And there we go. I'm going to figure out how to update that setting. So if you have a question, just go ahead and raise your hand and I'll open it up for you to talk. All right, guys, I'm not seeing any questions pop through. Oh, hold on. Q&A. Let's see here. Okay, let's go through this. I see a couple of questions here. From Ed, why are you an expert on AI? Well, I'm not. I don't claim to be. To be quite honest, I don't know that anybody is. This is all new, and there's a variety of different, we'll call it methodologies behind AI. So I don't know that anybody's an expert on AI. I've done a lot of research. Obviously, as an agency owner, this is something that we've been practicing for years now and preparing for. So I think I got a pretty good pulse on the situation, but I wouldn't call myself an expert by any means. Let's see here. Have you rated the AI apps out there? Is there a better one? Do they do different things better than others? Of course. There are so many. So to go into that on a webinar like this, I don't know. That could be a whole webinar. Let's just put it this way. I think the most common one out there being ChatGPT. Chat 5 just launched. And so you'll notice, and think about it. ChatGPT was in beta through November of last year. That's crazy to think. Like, we've only really had chat live, like in the open market, for about a year now. And look at how far it's come. For those of us who use it on a daily basis, it's incredible, right? Chat 5, not without its problems. Now you have Elon Musk's Grok. You have, again, a variety of platforms for a variety of things. Each one has its own little claim to fame, but I think the most diverse is going to be ChatGPT. It's the one that is the most versatile and the most integrated into third-party applications and systems. So if there's one that I would recommend a business owner get really, really familiar with, it's definitely going to be ChatGPT. Are there any legal issues when getting AI content and using it for your company? Obviously, there's always going to be legal issues. So again, the common sense ones still stand. So, you can't, pillage other people's stuff. You can't, use copyright information. But, if you want, and the rule of thumb is this, and I would say this is the simple approach that I have to it, is that if you are in a situation where you're trying to manipulate, you're trying to do something, let's say, not up to snuff, for lack of a better term, there's obviously ways you can get yourself into hot water. I think the general notion of what we've talked about today and how to utilize AI and how it's being utilized, there are no implications. Just remember, ChatGPT and AI sources use existing content to ultimately provide you an answer, right? So if you go to ChatGPT and say, write me a blog on this, 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 and this, now ChatGPT will do a really good job at citing the sources that information came from. So my recommendation to you is don't remove the cites. because then you're not infringing on people's copyrights. You're not going to have problems, basically. If you want to go a different route, obviously there could definitely be some legal issues with that. But again, most of it's pretty common sense stuff. Let's see here. What's our ad agency was wanting to post fake podcast educational videos on social media. I found it to be way outdated. I understand the educational aspect and importance of the Q&A. However, I believe there's much more updated ways to go about this. Your thoughts? There's a variety of ways, absolutely, that you can adopt that Q&A model. So are FAQs necessarily the say all be all? Of course not, but it's one that's easily referenced, easily citable, and absorbed through AI. So I definitely think that regardless of what our intention is from a consumer standpoint, I think it's more relevant from an AI perspective or AIO, GEO perspective than it is anything else. So I think that I would still implement that as a part of my strategy. But if we're looking for really more of that consumer engagement piece, 1,000%, I think there's way better ways to do that. I think having, little videos. I mean, God, I could think of 100 things to do right there. So there's also other third-party platforms, Quora, you can use GBPs. There's a variety of ways to do Q&As on that too. So I think it really depends on the intent, what you're looking to accomplish through your Q&As. And if it's just simply what we've talked about today, meaning AI and just getting in front of, generative AI, then I would say FAQs are probably your best way to go. But it doesn't mean that there's not other ways to have that content presented and still accomplish a similar result, if you will. All right. Next up, good old Randy Feldman, that guy. All right. Since I'm a client with your company, is there anything that I have to do on our side to welcome AI? The answer is no. We already handled that. So one thing that we've been practicing for years is, again, content is king. My strategy has never changed with that. Despite all the naysayers out there, content's dead, this, that, blah, blah, blah. It's proven time and time again that it is the way to go. And again, if we think about this logically, where is Google? Where is all of this being absorbed from? It's content. And so, the only thing that I recommend to clients is just be a part of the conversation. Is that when content's generated, just read through it, make sure that you update or add little insights into it based on your experience. I don't think any marketing agency out there is ever going to be 100% at content writing. I don't care if you're a career content writer. I've been writing content for 20 years now. And again, I'm not an expert on plumbing. I'm not an expert, and I've probably built hundreds of plumbing websites, and I've done all sorts of crazy stuff. So point being is that I'll never be an expert on those things. I'm really, really good at what I do, and I know marketing like the back of my hand. But am I a bail bonds guy? No. Am I, a plumber or electrician? So those are things where I really think as business owners, you still have a responsibility to engage with your marketing agency and make sure that they understand. Again, your marketing agency is never going to be an expert like you are, but make sure that you provide them that insight into how to make that content even better. That's what's going to get you across the finish line. So. All right, guys, I think that was all the questions. I know we went a little long today, so I really appreciate everybody staying in there, hanging in there with me. If you guys have any other questions, like I said, I'm an open book full of useless knowledge. So feel free to reach out, give us a call, give us a jingle at any point. Sam or Danielle, they'll set you up an appointment with me. Advice is free, I always say. So, if you just want to shoot the shit for 30 minutes, give me a jingle. So other than that, again, I really appreciate everybody's time today. I hope you guys found this informational. If you guys want a copy of this deck, please just send me an email. Let me know. Otherwise, I hope you guys have an amazing rest of your day, and hopefully we'll talk soon. Have a great day, guys.